Welcome back to Face It and Fix It. We are speaking with Dr. ELON CADOGAN, National Project Coordinator, Green Climate Fund, and Mrs. SHELLEY PARRIS, Project Manager, Barbados Water Authority. So before the break, we were talking about some projects pertaining to the personal tank program. Elon, when we had some technical challenges there before, we were actually discussing the water harvesting program. So I was asking Mrs. Parris to let us know about the personal tank.
We would have started this under a previous exercise at the BWA a number of years ago. And the Green Climate Fund and the 5Cs have now assisted us with trying to relaunching this particular activity. I would really not want to go into too heavy a detail at this point so that we give the chance for the full press coverage that we want to have for this activity, but I will give enough information to say that, as I said, we're trying to increase the resilience at the micro level and the residential level, and the needs assessment that was conducted was intended to give priority to the vulnerable persons in our society. Vulnerable relating to disabilities, the elderly, those who have economic challenges, and as such, the needs assessment that was completed, the consultant focused on a selection process that took us through those areas and gave those areas priority. Similarly, the needs assessment also focused on the prioritization, as I said, of because we have many more than 22 schools. But areas such as the fact that the structures or the buildings were actually identified or allocated as hurricane shelters, give additional priority to those kinds of schools, and to those, and especially obviously the ones that are experiencing significant water challenges across the country. So those are the kind of considerations that were given under the needs assessment and led into us developing to prepare the launch of this program, this part of the program.
So part of the fund would assist then with, as you saying, that the hurricane shelters, which obviously most of them are schools, some of them are churches, but in this case, we're talking about the schools. Would you then marry the relationship between solar powering the tank when it goes into a school, bearing in mind if it's hurricane season and we do lose electricity? Is that part of maybe BWA's program, as GCF has funded the tanks onto these schools? Will they be powered by solar?
Well, that will have to be a consideration for another step or another future program. Because the truth is, this program actually dovetails with the ministry's efforts to ensure that all schools have storage. So what we really did was to try to fill in between the areas that the government funding couldn't facilitate the installations across the board. But I believe that we are in a good position, based on the accomplishments to date under this project, to be able to look at future projects, not only the wastewater area, but to come back to water and or to come back specifically on, the renewable energy side and look at further initiatives in that area. But that's definitely one that we could look to develop in the long term. As you would know, we're focusing on trying to get to that zero emissions point across the country as our energy policy. So, but we as a company, we're also looking at all of the, and this is even before the energy policy was drafted. The BWA has always been trying to reduce that large electrical cost that we have. And we were looking at our own facilities, but partnering with other government entities is something that's actually being discussed at a high level right now. So it is a good opportunity for us to move that initiative forward in tandem with what we're doing in the water sector.
Okay, and back to Dr. CADOGAN. So we know that we've had COVID for 2 years. We know that some of the projects might have been delayed somewhat. What happens, or what is happening then with some of the projects when you see that there's a little bit of delay because of COVID? There's some provision that is made by GCF to allow for some of these delays based on the fact that we know we're possibly facing another war. We don't know. So we know that when you give funding, there's always a timeline, otherwise funding can be pulled. That's with IDB or various grants. But are you seeing some movement, as Shelley is saying, so far with the schools that have mentioned, there's some things that have been completed? So I just wanted to know if GCF, and you being the project manager, project coordinator, if your oversight, if you're happy with it, because when I say happy, I don't want to put you in a spot. If GCF more or less has recognized, I should say, that with all of these projects that some delays obviously occurred. So is that something that you all are mindful of and forgiving of, but knowing that the Water Authority is on top of it, as Shelley just said? So I just guess the question would be, do you allow for that wiggle room?
Well, definitely there are some. Okay, so let me go back to the project development stage. Let's start right from the beginning. The normal practices of when you develop a project of this magnitude, we're talking about multi-million-dollar projects. There are things that you, for example, COVID, back in 2018 when this was sent to the board, and 2019, 2018 was sent to the board, and 2019 actually the project started. In the beginning, I'm talking about January, February 2019. There was no talk about COVID. It's only in the end of the year, the latter part of the year of 2019, that COVID was a thing. All right, and the way in which this project was developed, and the way in which this project was built, and Shelley would have mentioned just now the co-financing aspect of it as well. When we developed this project, there was a contingency fund of about 1.5 million US dollars available to utilize when or if the time came that we needed to utilize the contingency funds. And for example, you would have mentioned COVID, and yes, we were facing some delays, some significant delays. However, we all understand that this is happening worldwide. This is a global impact on the supply chain. This is a global impact on the logistics. I mean, for example, if we discuss the fact that ports, as in shipping ports, had to shut down. Some countries were working 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So of course, not only the delays, but then guess what happens? The prices also go up. So one, you're facing delays, and then two, you're also facing increases in prices. And then if we want to discuss now the additional requirements for the PPE, which is the personal protection equipment, because you obviously want persons to work in a safe environment. We don't want that there's an intervention being funded by the GCF, administered through the 5Cs, and then you have workers in a situation where they don't feel comfortable at work. So you have to invest that contingency funds into things that you had no idea was going to happen. And for example, COVID, it was one of those things. But I would say that in terms of the overall implementation timeline for the project, because of the relationship, or the close relationship, or the functional relationship that we have between the 5Cs and the Barbados Water Authority, we were able to actually get things done that we could have done, that could have happened during the lockdowns. Of course, during the reduced hours at work, some persons working from home, most persons during, I think, the April-May period in 2022, working from home. So we really worked together to try to achieve some of the things that Shelley would have mentioned. Even up to last year, as mentioned before, with the delivery of the 6 tankers to the Barbados Water Authority to use with the government of Barbados to supply water, to transport water to persons all over Barbados. This is something that we did in a COVID-19 environment in 2021, when persons were trying to say, okay, how do we get these trucks from Japan through England into Barbados? We worked tirelessly. We called the suppliers. We spoke to them. I think communication is extremely vital when implementing projects of this large magnitude. And this is one example. We also mentioned the tanks. We're not rolling out that program. As Shelley would have mentioned, we're not going to talk too much about that. But I just want to say that it has to deal with the relationship and the professional working relationship between all 3 organizations, and of course to achieve the common goal. The common goal is to ensure that we provide water to persons in Barbados. At the end of the day, if you had to sum up the real goal of this project, is to ensure that water is available for persons in Barbados, safe, potable water.
So you do have some schools, I believe, completed already. I think PARRIS is one of the schools. with the not personal tanks but storage tanks for the schools that Shelley had mentioned earlier. So there has been some movement, and the reason why I had to mention that is that you want the public to understand that in a COVID environment, BWA together with GCF, they were still moving forward. Obviously, one would expect delays. I think every organization, every shipment of equipment they were all impacted because of COVID. Because I know that when you're doing projects, IDB projects, Euro projects, there's some penalties involved if projects are not done to time. So the reason I asked if you are as forgiving, I meant, do you understand, as GCF understanding that if there is a delay, we do have a pandemic, and that obviously provisions are sometimes made to allow for some delays, because we wouldn't want then people to think that they didn't get the projects off the ground without explaining, okay, this is what happened and that happened and we're back on track. But Shelley, how soon would you say that these projects would be wrapped up? I mean, there are various timelines for various projects. We know that GCF brought in the trucks. You have water trucks. They've started the water storage at the schools. The other projects like solar, do you have timelines for each project that you're looking to say, listen, by 2025 we'll complete this, 2026 we're going to complete that? How is that going to roll out with the timelines? Shelley, you still with us? Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Right, so the overall timeline for the project is really, we start with a start in 2019 going up to 2024. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we have the solar PV project about to start in full within the next couple of weeks. Our contractors are hitting the ground shortly from a combination of Germany and Pakistan. And in terms of their expected completion on the first two is pretty much by the end of this year. And the third one will start going into next year, 2023. While the tank program, rainwater harvesting and personal tanks, will take the better part of the next 2 years. So we're really, I believe our wrap-up timeline is supposed to be the first quarter of 2024 overall. And as such, we would want our major civil works projects have to be wrapped up basically by the end of next year.
So which stations are benefiting first? And if you don't want to mention the name, just say location.
Right.
As far as solar is concerned, you started those projects in what, the east, south,
right?
North?
Well, we're starting at the existing station where we have some PV at Bomeston and St. John. Mm-hmm. The second site will be Bell in St. Michael, our biggest pumping station across in the island, and then the third will be Hampton, which feeds the east. And I mentioned co-financing before. As I said, we have a number of accomplishments. Included in those accomplishments are the grant project which we completed with the United Arab Emirates, where we have an existing solar farm at Bomeston. So this new installation will bring our production up to just under 1 megawatt. And then we have an existing facility down at the next to our Bridgetown sewage treatment plant in the Folly. And those two counted towards our agreement. So it actually resulted, as I said, the fact that we've completed those the mains and those projects, we've actually exceeded our co-financing requirement for this project, which is a significant accomplishment for a project of this magnitude.
Okay, well, we are soon going to be out of time, so I just want to wrap up. Shelley, first, maybe by explaining to Barbadians listening to you now, what would you like them to know where you're at right now at the BWA as it relates to these projects, and in terms of being patient? And Elon, I'm going to ask you about water conservation campaigns that will be funded hopefully by maybe, I don't know who's funding them, if GCF is funding water conservation campaigns. Shelley, what would you like the public to know listening to you? Don't have any water, waiting for pipes to change, desalination plants to come, What would you like them to know?
Well, I would like the public to know that we at the BWA are continue to work assiduously towards improvement overall. We have many layers of projects, and we ask you in the areas where you are physically disturbed by the work to bear with us and bear with the noise, the dust, and the disruption for the period that we're doing it. But understand that our long-term aim is to improve our service to you. So, as I said, a lot of our main replacement work and our larger infrastructure works, visible infrastructure works in some instances, will tend to focus on the north because we want to make sure that the people of the north have their issues addressed as soon as possible. So, as I said, we have the number of programs, and as such, because we're so concerned about the north, we actually, for the same personal tank and rainwater harvesting program, we actually prioritize those locations first, not only St. Lucie, but St. Peter and so on. As such, the contribution of those water tankers that we've had, they have been prioritized for the north. We want the public to know we continue to work to make sure that our infrastructure, as old as it is in some instances, the government has seen it significantly important to make sure that it is addressed as soon as possible. We have a number of rehabilitation projects across our portfolio, but this one with the GCF is the one that we're really pushing very hard to. And it's well, I will have to say, in the cycle of project management execution, we are well in the curve of execution and trying to make sure that we complete these projects within the timelines that they were earmarked, despite our significant challenges.
Well, let me just say this for Shelley. Those of you listening, I worked with Shelley PARRIS. She was Shelley Chase then, engineer, excellent. And she was actually over distribution over all of the men that you see at the Barbados Water Authority. At some point, when she tells you that it will be done, and I have confidence in her, me personally. So Barbados, if you're listening, Shelley PARRIS is at the helm, a woman, and she continues to do great work. And I feel comfortable knowing that you are in charge, Shelley, because I know a lot of those projects will be executed in the way that they're supposed to be executed and in the time. And even if they aren't, I know you would always come back and tell the public why and how soon. So I'm going to give you your props because you deserve them.
Thank you.
Over the years. Elon, final words at you. We got like 30 seconds. Is there going to be water conservation campaign? Can we see that? Because it makes no sense doing all of these things if we don't teach Barbadians to conserve. Audio.
Okay, yeah, audio. Regarding the water conservation campaign, yes, there is a water conservation campaign envisioned under this project and has been budgeted for. But I guess we'll go a little bit further, and I got 30 seconds, just to say that not only the water conservation campaign, but what we would like to achieve is actually a paradigm shift in the way in which Barbadians view water. And that's it. Honestly, it has to start with the individual. It really has to. From as young as possible until as old as possible, you have to ensure that you utilize your water in a way that it can be sustainable for those generations to come in Barbados. Because as people say, oh, we don't have enough water, we don't have enough water, but guess what? We don't. So we have to ensure what resources we have, we really, really conserve.
All right, so that was Dr. ELON CADOGAN, National Project Coordinator, GCF 5Cs, and Mrs. Shelley PARRIS, Project Manager, Barbados Water Authority, and she's also an engineer. I want to thank you so much, Elon. I'm going to see you again in 2 weeks, in two Fridays from now, and of course with your guests. Hopefully it will be Water Authority again, and also some other members of the 5Cs from Belize. So we look forward to that. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great weekend. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks, Shelley. Okay, on that note, we had a great program. I want to wish everybody a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I also want to let you know that we did talk about repairing 2 homes, $10,000 each. We didn't get the promo started, but we are going to start in a few days. So tune in to Face It and Fix It for that. And we will also be assisting some individuals with some light bills and water bills that are in arrears. And I mean arrears to the fact that you're going to get disconnected. We just want to be able to not only assist you, but to show you how to conserve energy and how to conserve water to make sure that those bills do not go up again. So all happening here on Face It and Fix It. Tune in every Mondays and Fridays. We'll be back next Monday. Until then, God bless.